Sebastian Vettel tried so hard, got so far, but in the end, it didn't even matter because he lost his eventual second place in the Hungarian Grand Prix after the FIA was unable to draw a big enough fuel sample from his Aston Martin and disqualified his car. The Aston Martin team has since lodged a note of intent to appeal the decision, saying that there is enough fuel within Seb's car to satisfy the 1 litre requirement. But why were Aston unable to supply the fuel sample needed at the time, and what exactly happened to Vettel over the course of the race to impact it? Well, first of all, the requirement to provide a 1 litre sample of fuel for testing has been in the rulebooks for decades. It's key to policing the sport and ensuring that teams are always running the fuel composition that they've registered with the FIA and that they're not running anything illegal during the race. Fuel can be sampled and checked at any point over the weekend, but naturally the crucial times are when it really matters, after qualifying and after the race, and the teams need to supply a big enough sample for the FIA to test. And although in qualifying a team must get back to the pits under its own power and provide the litre sample there, a bit of leniency is usually given in the race. It's not written in the rules as such, but if any car does stop on the in-lap after the race for whatever reason, the FIA takes note, and that's exactly what happened with Vettel. Vettel stopped on the parade lap back to the pits, obliging him to make his way to the podium by foot. And he was not the only driver forced to park up at trackside. Williams drivers George Russell and Nicholas Latifi also received urgent calls from the team to stop on track, and both did so just after crossing the line. The reason for this was the Hungarian Grand Prix was tougher than perhaps expected on fuel consumption, and there's a possibility that the cars were slightly underfueled as they were expecting more wet weather running than we saw. In the wet, the drivers take it more slowly and lift off the throttle earlier for corners, saving more fuel. But as the red flag came out for a messy Turn 1 crash, the race restarted once the rain had subsided and the track had dried out. Even race leader Esteban Ocon had to fuel save through the race to make his fuel targets, something we don't usually see a lot of given how efficient today's hybrid power units are. As ever, the FIA took note of the cars that stopped out on track. Vettel, Russell and Latifi were all immediately earmarked for fuel sample checks on the basis that because they'd stopped on track, they might be marginal on that crucial litre sample. The sampling procedure involves the fuel being pumped out with the help of the team in the FIA scrutineering garage. The cars of Russell and Latifi provided the all-important litre, but Vettel's did not. Only 30% of the required amount could be retrieved despite the efforts of the mechanics. In the past, teams caught in such a situation would try everything they could to draw the last vital drops of fuel out, taking systems apart, squeezing bad tanks, and looking in every last pipe. In the hybrid era, that's no longer allowed. Teams can't even remove the engine cover. Usually, not having enough fuel for a sample is a slam dunk disqualification, and Vettel has endured this before back in 2012 during qualifying at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, in which he lost pole position and was sent to the back of the grid. And this rule extends to junior categories too. Dorian Boccolacci lost his first GP3 win in 2018 at Paul Ricard after his team was also unable to provide the all-important litre sample. So if it's a slam dunk disqualification, why is Aston Martin set to appeal the decision? Well, a team can calculate how much fuel is left because it knows how much it put in before the start, and the FIA fuel flow meter provides an accurate official record of what was used during the race. Team principal Otmar Safnauer was adamant that there should have been 1.74 litres of fuel still in the car, and given that the FIA only found 0.3, the missing 1.44 should be in there somewhere. Safnauer's assertion was that the car's lift pump had failed, and that's why the last dregs could not be removed. That was a key element of the debate with the FIA. Should the team be allowed to fit a fresh pump to help look for the missing fuel? Although the FIA took the decision to disqualify Vettel, Aston Martin's notice of intent buys it 96 hours to decide whether it will formally appeal the decision. So here's what will happen next. To go to the next step, Safnauer has to agree to a highly unusual procedure. The FIA would impound the entire Aston Martin car and take possession of it, pending the appeal process. The FIA then arranged transport from Budapest to the FIA technical facility in France, and given the timeframes at stake, the fact that this comes before the summer break is rather lucky indeed. Had this occurred in the middle of a back-to-back, the team would have lost Vettel's entire car, including its gearbox and power unit for the following race. Even with a gap of one free weekend, it's unlikely that an appeal would have been arranged in time. So from there, the appeal will depend on whether Aston Martin is able to fit a new lift pump or not. There's some provision in the rules for replacing damaged parts like for like in order to pass scrutineering checks, and that will likely be a key argument. If the team decides in the next few days that it's not worth pursuing the appeal, or if it proceeds and loses, Vettel's superb second place and the associated 18 points will be lost. That will confirm Hamilton's second place and Sainz's third place finishes, lift Williams onto 10 points, and elevate Kimi Räikkönen to 10th for a solitary point. The likelihood is that most won't be too sympathetic to Aston's cause. And although it's a great shame for Vettel, who put in a superb drive and stands to lose that result through no fault of his own, that doesn't matter in the eyes of the FIA. These rules, at least, are black and white. What did you make of the events of the Hungarian Grand Prix? Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time for another Autosport video.